Hello everyone, I'm Benita Story, also known as the Fiber Pusher. I just kind of wanted to give a little intro into this video and a little background on my sewing history. I have been a seamstress and a sewer since I was in, well, gosh, junior high really, maybe even earlier than that. I remember taking sewing class, I think it was in 8th grade. Yeah, we took cooking class in 7th grade and sewing class in 8th grade. I already knew how to make my own clothes. We were supposed to make blouses and stuff and shirts and everything. Um, I already knew how to use the sewing machine. I already knew how to read a pattern. I was already making my own clothes by then. And so it was, of course, it was a full semester long class where we were supposed to make these tops. I had my top made within the first week. And so what I did was I actually went around and helped the teacher help other students who were having problems. And so that's how long I've been sewing. In fact, in high school, I made pretty much all of my clothes. I didn't make my underwear. I didn't make blue jeans or anything like that. But as far as my shorts and pants and dresses and skirts and blouses and nightgowns and all of that kind of stuff. And I made dolls and stuffed animals. I made all of that. A matter of fact, I even made my mom's work blouses, and she was always so proud. She would go to the factory with a new shirt on saying, "Hey, look what my daughter made me," which made me feel pretty proud that my mom was proud of me. So I really did a lot of sewing. In college, my senior year of college, I actually swiped mom's sewing machine and took it to college with me, and I actually made a little extra money mending people's clothes, hemming pants. I actually made a couple, 3 dolls and sold them when I was a senior in college. And then when I graduated from college, one of my gifts to me, and I don't even remember who gave it to me, I think it was Scott's grandmother, gave me a little brother sewing machine. And so I continued sewing and stuff with that. In fact, I made bridesmaid's dress and the flower girl's dress on that sewing machine for my wedding. So I was really into sewing. And then after that, I didn't make clothes so much as I made dolls and doll clothing. And over the time, I made, I'm going to guess, well over 100 18-inch cloth dolls. And this was before American Girl dolls were a thing. And I made and sold them and with little outfits, or I did one of them where a guy wanted to make one for his grandmother. His grandmother loved Southern Bells, and I made a doll with the hoop skirt and the multiple petticoats and the dress with the overlay. And yeah, that one is probably one of my pride and joys that I have made. I have a picture of it around here somewhere. One of these days I might show it to you. Anyways, I did a lot of sewing up until a certain point. When we built the house that we're currently in, we moved in here September 1st of 94. So it's been 26 plus years ago. I was going to school, college. I was working very full time, like 50 to 55 hours a week. And it got to a point where I just didn't sew anymore. I didn't have time. I did some gardening and I did a lot of reading and stuff like that. And those were pretty much my hobbies at the time. I eventually learned how to knit and then spin and dye and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of took over my life for a while too. But recently I've really missed sewing. I did take a couple sewing classes and stuff like that when I worked for the CPA firm, which was, well, I've been at the company I'm at with now for 18 and a half years, so that's over 20 years ago. And one of the things I took a class on was how to do watercolor quilts. And so that's what this is about today. It's twofold. It's me getting back into sewing. I mean, I've made a few masks and stuff like that, but this quilt, little quilt, it's only 22 inches by 22 inches. I mean, it's small, but quilting it and getting back into how to use my sewing machine and how to sew again, basically. That's what this project's all about. So I'm going to take you along for the ride. It's kind of a bumpy ride. I definitely need more practice before I start making anything fancy. I have a couple more simple projects coming up that will help me get into it. Matter of fact, at the beginning when I'm working on the little quilt, I'm not even sewing on the sewing machine very fast because I was uncomfortable with sewing on the sewing machine again because I wasn't used to it anymore. And by the end, I was back to being used to it. Now, over the years, it's not like I hadn't sewed at all. I've actually made curtains for people. I've made pillows and box cushions and stuff like that, but they're pretty much straight lines. And those were just kind of keeping my hand in a little bit so that I wasn't rusted so much that I was completely falling apart. Kind of gave me a little oil along the line to keep the sewing skills up. Anyways, I just wanted to show you this video of me going through with the watercolor quilt, quilting it, dealing with some issues I had, and finishing it. And it's now hanging above my bed. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy my getting back into sewing. And there are going to be a lot more sewing videos coming up. I already know what my next 2 projects are going to be. Actually, I know what my next 3 projects are going to be. 2 are relatively simple. 1 is definitely complex. And it has a twofold result at the end. So I hope you enjoy this. If you are new to sewing and you are a little intimidated by the whole thing, just go slow, take your time. Don't be afraid to rip out. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, that's what a seam ripper's for. And join me for the ride. At least 20 years ago, I took a class on watercolor quilt. And I will put some pictures up here in a bit of some watercolor quilt patterns that you can do. But basically, you're taking little squares, and these here, I believe, were 2.5 by 2.5 squares because they came out to be 1.5 inch and 1.5. And you take different colors from the lightest to darkest, and you can do all kinds of different patterns with them. I chose to do what I call the sunrise. And if you look, you can see the sunrise from the bottom right up to the upper left. And I enjoyed doing this. And once I got it done, I didn't do anything else with it. And so it sat there, sat in my closet. I mean, it's nicely done. It's all pressed on the back, and I think I did a decent job. Obviously, it's machine sewn. Some gorgeous fabrics in here. I mean, I love this. Look at this way this rose here is absolutely framed beautifully in that. Oh, actually, I kind of would like to do another watercolor quilt. Anyways, I think it's time I did something to finish this. And so I'm going to bring you along for the ride and how I finish this piece. I dug through some of my supplies and I found this. It's a natural cotton batting, quite a big piece. I almost hate to waste part of it on that, but I may see if I've got a smaller piece. But I love this cotton batting. I just love it. It just, to me, it quilts so beautifully and it washes so well and it's just beautiful. And I got some black bias tape, black fabric, and then I got to looking at my threads. And it's like, okay, obviously black is an obvious choice. But looking at this, especially on the lighter colors, I just don't feel comfortable quilting this with black. So I got to diving through my sewing threads and I came up with this kind of a goldy color. I think it works really well for the sunrise portion. Let's take this away. And I also think it actually works decently well up here. I mean, there's golds and stuff up there, you know, obviously far more than there are blacks down there. So I'm thinking about quilting the whole thing in this kind of a goldy yellow color, which being with the sunrise, it could be, you know, sunlight reflecting off of things. encroaching into the night sky as the sun rises. Anyways, this is kind of what I was thinking about doing. Now, let me show you what pattern I'm thinking about using for the quilting. I wanted to sort of play into the fact that it's called sunrise, but doing sunrise rays from that bottom corner up to and fanning out, I thought would be I don't know, kind of a pain in the butt to do. So I came up with this. So it's 15 squares by 15 squares. So ignore the fact this is obviously not to scale. But with it being 15 squares to 15 squares, there's going to be a center that's going to be done. So say, pretend that this is the 8th row of each direction. So you've got 7 rows and 7 rows, and then you've got this 8th. So there's going to be a crossing of the lines for the first lines in the center of that 8th, or I guess, yeah, 8 by 8 center part. And so rather than doing an X all the way down and just continuing with a grid, I thought it would be kind of neat to bring it out and go with the center of each block under and bringing it down and kind of taking that X and I don't know. I kind of like this. I like the fact that it's an X, but it's not a grid X. I don't want it to be a grid. I really want you to be able to see the X. And I think with a grid, you would lose that. I mean, I could stitch in the ditch and just go straight up and down, but that's boring now, isn't it? So I was thinking about doing this. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, I want to do the gold thread on the front, but I have a black background. Do I want to do the black on the back, or do I want to do the gold on the back as well? If I have enough of this gold thread, I really don't want to go and buy it anymore. If I have enough of this gold thread, I would really kind of like to do the gold on the back because you would be able to see the quilting. But how bad would it show if I didn't exactly get my lines perfectly straight, which I'm obviously going to try. I may just go ahead and do the black on the back. It's just the backing and everything, and it'll never be seen. It's just going to be hanging. I'm going to use this as a wall hanger when I get done with it. So I think I'm definitely going to go with the gold on the front, and it looks like I pretty much have made up my mind to go with black on the back. Now I wanted to show you about some sewing machine feet. This is just a normal zigzag sewing machine foot. And while it works great, it slides across fabric. And if you've got an area where it puckers a little bit, it actually can put a little pucker in the fabric. Because it actually pushes it pushes the fabric in front of it. So you would actually have a little bit of a pucker right there. So what I got out was this foot here. It actually has rollers on the bottom. And so instead of pushing on the fabric, it just kind of rolls and glides around on the fabric because those little wheels do. They roll across the fabric rather than puckering it. Do you realize that looks like the little Flintstone car? And then I hit a stumbling block. I saw wrinkles. Lots and lots of wrinkles. And I put the fabric away for a while. It just depressed me. The only thing I could do was take a seam ripper and actually rip out all of that area that had been puckered by the sewing machine. Then I ironed it out flat, smoothed it out, and got it ready to re-sew those seams. So there you go. It's all done. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but like Scott says, perfect is overrated. But I'm really, really happy. It's now hanging above my bed, and when I'm sitting and sewing, I can turn around and look at it and be happy that I finally finished a project after being 20 years in the works.